Hey there, everyone! Welcome back to our channel. I'm Alana, and I am going to tell you the 10 poorest states in the United States as of 2024. Poverty is more than just statistics. It's about real people and real lives. It's about dreams deferred and opportunities missed. Let's start with the great state of Texas, which takes the number 10 spot. Now, you might be surprised to see Texas on this list, given its reputation for being big and prosperous. There is a huge difference in income across the state, and the tax system isn't very good for people who aren't doing well. However, with a per capita GDP of $81,130 and poverty rate of 14.2%, it's our number 10. And it's even more disheartening to know that 14% of the unemployed people don't receive any unemployment insurance. 1 in 4 people in Texas live below the poverty line, and in B County, 2 in 7 people live below the poverty line. There are also a lot of rural areas where jobs are hard to come by, and the school systems in many parts of the state need a lot of work. This makes it harder to get good-paying work. These days, big companies in general don't move to places where people aren't trained. That was okay in the 1940s and 1960s because farming needed a lot more people than it does now. This state could be in for a big change if they put money into schools, especially in places that don't have enough of them, and make college easier to get into and cheaper. The bad thing is that it will take 10 to 15 years to really see if this works. They also have a very high number of people who don't have health insurance. Let that sink in for a moment. Now, let's move to South Carolina, which lands at number 9. With a per capita GDP of $53,618 in 2022, you might wonder why it's facing economic hardships. Well, here's the startling truth. 14.6% of its population lives below the poverty line. The population is growing by almost 1.3% each year, making it the 6th fastest growing state. While it's not the worst state in the country, the economy is really bad because of how badly the schools are run and how little importance is put on them. The Charleston area is the only place where this isn't true. It's a great place to live, with good job opportunities and a surprisingly high typical family income of $70,000. But the rest of the state doesn't have much industry, which is why the 16.9% families earn less than $50,000 a year, putting them in poverty. The cost of living is rising much faster than most jobs can keep up with. The typical home value has gone up to $207,000. The state's crime rate is 39% higher than the national average. The numbers get even more alarming when you learn that 1/4 of all children in the state are poor, and 1/3 rely on food stamps. It's a complex issue with no simple solution. Next place is the state of Oklahoma, securing the 8th spot. This state is on this list because of its high poverty rate and the fact that it has the highest rate of people on public aid in the country. With a per capita GDP of $50,590, it's evident that Oklahoma faces its own set of challenges. New research shows that 27.3% of people who live there don't have health insurance, and the crime rate is 16% higher than in the rest of the U.S. The state doesn't really care about education and historically put less money into schools than almost every other state. And its public schools are the 5th worst in the country in terms of chronic underfunding. And 15.6% of Oklahomans live below the poverty line. This may have something to do with the fact that Oklahoma has by far the most prisoners in the U.S. Choctaw County has 29% of its people living below the poverty line, making it their poorest county. Oklahoma is starting to see new tools like green energy and better health care. In the next few years, health here will be a big business for them, which could help. Our next stop is the heart of the South, Alabama, which holds the 7th position. What the heck? I believed Alabama was the worst state. Why is it only 7th on this list? Yes, the Cotton State used to be the worst place to live in America. A few years ago, it would have been one of the 3 poorest states. With the per capita income of $43,800, it faces its own unique challenges. Alabamians with the worst facilities are taxed 10% of their income, but those with the most money are only taxed 3.8%. Aside from Huntsville, though, most of Alabama is still very poor and has even fewer opportunities. In the next 5 to 10 years, I think things will be different for them, and they might even fall out of the top 10. But right now, 16.1% of their people live below the poverty line, which puts them at number 7. There is even worse stuff in most of rural Alabama. Perry County is their poorest county. The biggest city in the state, Birmingham, has a poverty rate of 25.9%, and a serious crime rate is 400% higher than the national average. 5th place goes to the natural state, Arkansas. Our old friend is on the list. The state has come a long way from the 1940s, when nearly half of its population lived in poverty. But the land of opportunity has no job opportunities at all, not even with a low jobless rate of 4.9% and a minimum wage of $11. With a per capita income of $54,644. Well, except for the Fayetteville area, where the median family income is $62,000, because that's where so many Fortune 500 companies are based. But at $48,900, the state's typical family income is the 3rd lowest in the country. Arkansans aren't really to blame, though. The economy is based on farming, logging, trucking, and transportation, so there aren't many well-paying jobs. Since education isn't a top focus here, the public school system is ranked 8th worst in the country. The poverty rate in many areas is over 35%, and the rate across the whole state is 16.3%, and Phillips County is their smallest county, where 46% of people don't make enough money to live on. Of course, the northwest part of the state is very different from the rest of it. But we're talking about the whole state of Arkansas here, and wages are terrible. Still, the state is beautiful. It's going to take some time and work, just like fixing an old truck. Next place is Kentucky, often known as the Bluegrass State, where the struggle is twofold, with low salaries and limited opportunities. With a per capita income of $60,170. Every year, the general quality of life in Kentucky gets worse, and the government of the state doesn't seem to have any plans to make things better. They used to make a lot of coal, but that industry has pretty much gone away. They also used to make tobacco, which is also going away slowly, and booze. Moonshine used to be a big deal in Kentucky. There is extreme poverty and a lot of meth addiction because the agriculture and coal mining industries that used to make up a lot of the state's economy have gone downhill. There are now 16.5% of Kentuckians living below the poverty line, and the Bluegrass State has the biggest number of minimum wage workers in the country. There are some good jobs in the Louisville and Lexington areas, but even in those cities, wages are much lower than they would be in other states for similar work. The state's story is one of contrasts, potential for economic growth, yet hindered by systemic issues. Kentucky's journey towards economic stability is a path filled with both obstacles and opportunities. The Mountain State, West Virginia, takes the 4th position on our list. The rolling Appalachian Mountains hide a harsh reality. With a per capita income of $42,336, it's evident that West Virginia faces significant economic hardships. A shocking 16.8% of its population lives in poverty. A lower cost of living and a lower jobless rate, on the other hand, help some families stay out of poverty. West Virginia's economic problems have been going on for a long time and are mostly due to its history of relying on coal mining. But as we already said, as the world moved towards cleaner energy sources, less coal was bought. This happened in many small towns in West Virginia. Life here is tough. However, there are glimmers of hope. The state's relatively low unemployment rate and affordable cost of living provides some relief. But the challenges are stark: outmigration, an aging population, and a declining birth rate paint a picture of a state in demographic distress. They have had a lot of bad luck over the years. Nice people, lovely land, interesting past, and a lot of bad luck. At number 3, we have the land of enchantment, New Mexico. It's a state heavily reliant on federal subsidies, struggling to generate enough revenue from income taxes. Reliance on federal aid is a double-edged sword, providing necessary support but also highlighting the state's economic vulnerabilities. It's very strange. Its right next door is Arizona, and New Mexico are about the same size and have mostly the same weather. More than 7 million people live in Arizona, while just over 2 million live in New Mexico. This is another state that puts a lot of power in the oil and gas business. There was a time when these were very profitable. Now, they're not as profitable. However, with a per capita income of $51,481, it faces its own set of economic challenges. Here, 18.63% of the population lives below the poverty line, and the state grapples with an 8.6% unemployment rate. Guadalupe County has the most poor people, with 44% of its residents living below the poverty line. What then could make New Mexico better? First, makes more stable and varied job possibilities if it invests in and grows other industries, such as tech and green energy. They have some great colleges and K-12 plus programs. The situation is complex and multifaceted. Number 2 on the list is, yes, Mississippi, often referred to as the Pelican State. A state often synonymous with the blues music band, both musically and economically. Was this one really a shock? As it turns out, the poorest state in the country is also our worst place to live. With a per capita income of only $39,368, it's evident that Mississippians face significant economic challenges. A staggering 19.4% of its population lives below the poverty level. But why is Mississippi so poor? The reasons are multifaceted. A high unemployment rate of 6.85%, a history of educational challenges, and limited job opportunities. In many counties, the scenes resemble those from developing countries, with dilapidated infrastructure and scarce resources. Yet, amidst this, there's a spirit of community and resilience that's unmistakably Mississippian. Public schools are also some of the worst in the country. Even if they were good, it wouldn't help much because the business is also the worst in the country. However, if you've ever been to Mississippi, you would likely know that it is by far the poorest state in the United States just by looking around. Before the Civil War, this state also put all of its money into farming, especially cotton. Cotton wasn't really paying the bills in the end. A lot of you are probably thinking, wow, that was 60, 70, or 100 years ago. It takes generations to catch up with the rest of the country, which has been focused on schooling and other fields the whole time. And the crown goes to Louisiana, often referred to as the Pelican State, where the vibrant culture of New Orleans contrasts sharply with the state's economic realities. I know this video has been mostly about the South, but that's just how they do things. It's too bad that the South has always been the poorest place in the country. The state's economy has had problems for a long time, in part because it depends so much on oil and farming. Louisiana has the most oil refineries per person in the U.S., so there are some well-paying jobs in oil and gas. They've also had some terrible luck, like West Virginia. West Virginia was hit when the coal business went away, and they've also been hit by storms that have destroyed the state. I mean, Hurricane Katrina set them back many years. Hurricane Katrina happened almost 20 years ago, but the damage it did to homes and infrastructure is still being felt today in Louisiana as a whole, not just in New Orleans. How can they make it better? I don't know. They really care about tourists since New Orleans is so close and cruise ships stop there a lot. This place is known as the sportsman's paradise. I have no idea how much money that makes. It's without a question the most crooked state in the country. Because of this, high income and local sales taxes take away what little money the poor have. There is also a 31.1% pay gap between men and women. When you look at everything, it shouldn't be a surprise that 19.6% of people live below the poverty line and that the crime rate is twice as high as the national average. With a per capita income of $57,445, you might wonder why it's facing economic hardships and it's grappling with a growing opioid addiction epidemic. These are the harsh realities faced by the 10 poorest states in America in 2024. If you found this information eye-opening and valuable, please consider subscribing to our channel and turning on notifications. Together, we can raise awareness and work towards a brighter future for these states and their residents. Until next time, stay informed and stay compassionate.